And welcome to Greater Nevada Credit Union's live streaming event. I'm Michael Thomas, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications here at the Credit Union, and I'm joined by Patty Chang, who is our Senior Vice President of Risk. And today we are talking about fraud, and most importantly, as Patty and I will take you through, not only answering your questions, but trying to provide some very useful information of how to prevent yourself from becoming a victim of fraud. And unfortunately, Greater Nevada views it as our service to the community, not only our members, but the community at large, just try to raise the level of awareness and also give some very useful and practical things you can do, not only to help yourself avoid becoming a victim of fraud, but to also help those friends and family members who may just open up a conversation. So we do believe a well-informed community is the best line of defense. So Patty, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking time out to talk with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Patty, maybe we can start with why is fraud increasing? Or maybe should I say it another way is why does it seem like the level of fraud and fraudsters that are out trying to take advantage of people has increased? At least it feels that way.
Yeah, it certainly does, doesn't it? I would say that fraud feels like it's been increased because we all have more access, right? Technology can be a fantastic thing for a lot of reasons. It can give us convenience, it can give us access, and it can help us in our day-to-day lives. But it also provides more access to everything that we have. You and I both know that all you need is this device right here, and it has almost everything that you need to get your banking done, to get your grocery shopping done, to pay bills, to communicate with others. So there's a lot of access, and so with that comes more opportunity for fraudsters to reach out and to use different channels to try to get people to give them the information that they shouldn't be.
And I know at the credit union, and we talk to our colleagues that are not only in banks, credit unions, all throughout the industry, there seems to be a particular increase in the use of something you talked about on our cell phones that we all take for granted is the ability to send a text message. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what is one of the more common attempts right now that fraudsters are trying to have someone provide privileged information. What are they doing right now?
Sure. So right now what we're seeing fraudsters, and I'll just refer to them as that if that's okay.
Yeah.
We're seeing fraudsters using text as a medium to get a lot of information out to a lot of people. And sometimes the texts look what I'll call lazy, and they just say, "Hi, this is Greater Nevada Credit Union," but it's from an out-of-state phone number, and it's got a weird link, and there's nothing else to it, and there's no reason for us to think that it actually is Greater Nevada Credit Union, except that it says that. And so they send that message to our members. They send it to people in the 775 area code, and they're trying to get someone to respond. And if you send out enough of those texts, the odds are that someone will respond, right? But some of the other things that we're seeing more recently are a little more savvy, if you will, and they're using logos. They're using our logos. They're using, and sometimes they've even been able to spoof our numbers. But the key is when you're receiving these texts, is it an unsolicited text? Because that's the key. Fraudsters are sending stuff out and they're asking you to take action on something. And that's usually includes a link or calling them back or something like that. So for the record, Greater Nevada Credit Union will not send you a text, an unsolicited text, to ask you to do anything with a link in it or to call a number other than what's on our website. And by unsolicited, I mean, if you've applied for a loan, there are some steps that we may ask you to take, but that is something that you have started. So it's really the unsolicited texts. They're coming out, and it's not unusual and it's not uncommon. We all have them from Amazon. I get some from Apple and Amazon, and almost every day. And so you just ignore them, block them, move on with your life, and and don't give them the information that they seem to be asking for.
I want to lean in. That was a great overview. I want to lean in a little bit more too, just to kind of make a point, because I do think, as you and I have discovered when we try to communicate what we mean by unsolicited, you said something. Just another example. If you're a customer or a member of a credit union or a bank, and say you try to log into your online account, and you might get a text that asks you
Right.
to do something, and maybe just kind of help us understand. You said it well, unsolicited, but what the difference, right? It's sort of like, maybe I describe it as an out of the blue text, or a text that comes in the course of doing business with a credit union or a financial institution.
Sure, absolutely. So yeah, if I'm trying to log into my online banking and I have the wrong password, and it sends me a text that says, "Hey, by the way, someone tried to log into your online banking and use the wrong password," then you know it's likely to be you. Um, if you have not done any of those things, and all of a sudden you get a text that says, "Hey, your account is locked. You have a $4,000 transaction," the odds are that's not a thing. And so, as I've always said, and as we've said on our website, on our online banking, and in a lot of our social media, if in doubt, just don't click on it. Don't respond to the text. Hang up, delete it. Contact our branches or our call center, based on the information that's on our gncu.org website.
We are taking some questions, and so we'll go through some more here. But I did have a
Yeah.
question that came in, and you talked about it. What happens as a financial institution, or most financial institutions? Now, you know what we do here at Greater Nevada, but if there was a suspicious activity on an account, or we suspected that one of our members was falling victim to a fraudster, what would we do? Would we send a text? Would we call proactively? Maybe just take through what's a legitimate line of communication, and what would be one that should raise the hair on the back of your neck that something doesn't feel right.
Sure, absolutely. This is a great question. So number one, we're not going to text you. There you go. If you have fraud on your account, I'm not going to text you. We're going to call. But I will tell you that in the last couple of weeks, I've been helping my staff return calls and contact some of our members. And I've had a couple members, and this has been the best part of my day. They've said, "How do I know you are who you say you are?" And that's a fantastic question. And I said, there's 1,000 ways I can prove that to you. So do me a favor. You can call back to 882-2060, and you can go through the menu and look up my name, and it'll ring to me, and I will answer your phone call. And so I appreciate when someone has a little bit of a healthy skepticism when we're calling. That's okay. I'm completely fine with that. But you can have a little bit of faith in the caller ID when it says Greater Nevada Credit Union. We should be able to provide you with information and not ask you for information in certain cases, to help understand who we are and why we're calling, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. And just to follow up, another kind of thought around this is, you talked about one of the tactics that happens, right? And as a marketer, as someone who values communication, urgency can sometimes be a good thing, right? We want people to respond to us, but maybe just talk about what is a common a tactic of someone that's trying to take advantage of someone's sense of wanting to respond to urgency, and why it isn't always a good thing to be responding quickly to something that comes into your phone or an email or a call.
Yeah, it's a human reaction, right? When we get a text, the first thing we do is we pick up our phone, look at it, right? And so it's the same thing. When you get a text that says you have fraud on your account, click on this link. That's the first thing you do, right? And it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and I totally understand it. But it's so they're trying to appeal to your sense of urgency that your account and your credentials have been compromised, and so you need to do something about it. And while that's true, there is a sense of urgency if that has in fact happened. You need to make sure that you verify that it has happened, again, through the same channels I mentioned. Don't click on the link that's in the text asking you for that action, and don't contact any phone number that's in that link. Contact Greater Nevada Credit Union directly. They appeal to your sense of urgency, and try to scare you a little bit. They use scare tactics. They'll do it with telling you there's a fraud transaction. They'll tell you your account's locked out. They'll tell you that there's a transfer in process. There's a lot of different ways that they're doing this, and none of those things are true. One of my favorite things that's happening right now is that we have a lot of non-members, and they're calling us and saying, "I'm not even a member." So that's a pretty easy one. Like, you're not a member, so I wouldn't know if you have a fraud transaction on your account, which means you don't. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting thing they do. It's psychological, and it's trying to get you to respond.
So here's a question that came in, and I'll just pose it, and it's okay if we don't know the answer. We can also follow up afterwards. But are there certain phones or brands of phones that are more locked down from fraud than others, or do you find that devices that people own make you any more or less vulnerable to this kind of a fraud attempt?
Well, I know there's the big debate, iPhone versus Android, and I would say this, that fraudsters have no qualms about either of them, so they will send them to any of them, and I believe they all have about the same protection. It's not really about the phone; it's about the user. It's about what you do with it. There are some, like I've turned on some things in my phone that says unknown, it blocks numbers. So there are things that you can do, and I believe those are available on most smartphones out there in the market.
Okay. So, Patty, changing gears a little bit, and actually, I know we're trying to produce this event a little bit, so I might ask the individuals that are helping us produce this to maybe pull up if we can share an example. I do think we're always cautious about oversharing information, but I do want to show, if we can, an example of one of the current text messages that are going out, and this is actually one that, if we can see it. Here's the example. And so maybe you could walk somebody through how,
Sure.
someone who deals with this day in and day out, what do you notice in this message, and what would be a thing for a potential consumer, just a normal person who gets this to kind of spot and be on the lookout for, even if you were a member of our credit union, what would jump out
Yeah.
to you as you look at this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so this is my least favorite thing that's happening right now. But what you can't see on the top of the page is they're all originating from like a 959 area code. Okay, so that's not Nevada. So there's your first clue. The second clue is that this logo in here, the Greater Nevada Credit Union, and then the link above it, it's a screenshot. So, I know that you and your team work very hard to put out professional marketing, and then they're never going to send a screenshot as a mass marketing campaign or text. But then the link, if you look at the link, I mean, Agencia, like there's nothing in there. It says GNCEU1. So there's not even anything in there that's indicating it's Greater Nevada. It's a junk link that probably sends you to somewhere in the dark web, and so we don't want that. And so those are the three things that really say to me, no, none of these things are true. None of these things are correct. It's just like when you get an email and you hover over the sender and you see that it's not in fact Amazon, it's some strange email address out there. This is the same thing. So yeah.
No, that's great. Well, thank you very much for walking us through. I think it's good to show examples, and I do know we are committed as a credit union to not only try to share information, but we do really want to stop somebody from becoming a victim of either fraud or identity theft. And this is not necessarily the topic, but one of the things we do want to caution is back to slowing down, is we do move very fast, but the impact that this does have on someone if they were to share information, maybe just walk through it. It can be very time consuming to stop this, right? Not only for institutions like ourselves, but the individuals that are being impacted. Or maybe you could just talk a little bit about why this is such an important issue for not only individuals, but their families to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm also going to tie in the question that's in our chat right now is, does clicking on the link from your phone open you up for an attack, or do you need to give them more information? So yeah, clicking on the link doesn't necessarily do anything, but it does send you to a different place where they do ask for that information. And so once that information is provided, I mean, you've given them your account credentials. So right now, what that means is they can go into your account, they can transfer funds out to someone else, they can apply for loans, they can drain your bank accounts. And so, think about that. What can you afford to lose today, right? And so, the thing I caution to our members is when they've had fraud on their account is you just need to stop. You need to think about it, and you need to think about what you're willing to lose, right? And I know that I would that everybody I know would have a problem if $5,000 or $10,000 was taken out of their account. Then it's also pervasive, because then they can go in and they can add external accounts. They can do stuff in your online banking. They can transfer to other people. And it's very, very hard it's not very hard to stop. It's just very time consuming to stop. It means you have to go get new accounts. You have to get new cards. You have to get new online banking credentials, which is all a kind of a big deal. And so, when you're giving online credentials, it puts you in a very, very vulnerable position. and puts you at risk for a lot of damage, unfortunately.
So here's another thing that I know both you and I have talked about this, but I'll share it. As and I don't want to speak in broad generalities because there are some incredibly savvy senior age individuals that use technology probably even better than me. But
Absolutely.
I do want to talk about maybe as a family member, maybe as like you're a granddaughter or grandson or your parents. How do you start having these conversations, to sort of make the family and your friends aware of this, maybe even when you're not a victim yourself? But what have you seen work well? How do you help educate people about how to prevent this from happening in the first place? What have you seen that's been effective?
So it's a great question. And I would say that personally, I've shared with you that my father was a victim of an online scam. And it involved logging into his computer and getting his passwords and his banking credentials. And then they tried to transfer out funds. And so I would say the one thing that is most important is just education and repetition, right? And so don't click on the link. This is not a text. This is not a valid text. Do this. I have also said to all of my friends and anybody I know that's a Greater Nevada member, if you have a question, here's my phone number. Call me. Don't click on anything. Don't respond to anything. Call me directly, and I will verify if it's correct or not. And that's open to anyone. I don't mind. Give me a call. And so I think it's really just the education, repetition. If you need to show them examples, and I know in certain cases I've had some friends who have some family members who are vulnerable to this, and they've actually disabled certain features. And if that's a thing that makes sense, then sometimes that makes sense as well.
Yeah. So let's go through a couple. I think we're kind of we got another question here, but I'm going to pose that question after I take through this. So let's talk about some best practices, maybe, or just ways to prevent fraud. So let's use the example of you do suspect something is off. I just want to walk people through to make sure we're being as clear as possible about where should you go to find what you think is your bank or credit union's telephone number. What should you do to log in and verify that your account is not having activity? Maybe just walk us through what are the pillars of an effective way to make sure that you're not falling victim to a fraudulent site or to someone reaching out that is pretending to be your credit union.
Sure.
What should you do?
Yeah, and I'll address it from two kinds of fraud. Number one is debit card. So call the number on the back of your debit card. Okay, that's the first line of defense for debit card fraud is calling the number on the back of the card. Don't call anywhere else. Call that number, and they should be able to verify everything for you. If it's the online banking thing that we're talking about right now, then you should go to your financial institution's main website that is well published and is very secure. Ours happens to be www.gncu.org, right? And our numbers are published all over there. On that website, we also have, if you do a keyword search for fraud, there's a fraud resources page that has everything on it. And by everything, I mean we have information for the Attorney General. We have information for other offices that will help you. And if you're, for example, let's say you have identity theft, and it'll teach you how to report to all the right agencies so you can get that figured out. But yeah, go to our website and go to the website that is the correct website for your financial institution, and then contact the number that's listed there for the call center or for the fraud hotline.
Great tips. And one other one that I would add is, we for our members that may be viewing this and going through it, we do. You're aware if you're a recent member or have been one for a while, we did recently upgrade our digital banking experience. And while we've always been secure and safe, there were a few things that got us excited about upgrading our technology, because one of them is some of the safety features we have. But I would say, download whatever bank or credit union you're a part of, back to using an Android or an iPhone, download what's called the native app. So that would be going to the App Store or the Google Play Store and be able to download that. And that's just a really, really safe way to, go through your native app. It's very, very hard for that to be spoofed. And that's a great way to log in to see if there's anything unusual going on in your account. And then obviously when you get to a native app, you're going to have the ability to contact your institution directly in the ways that Patty described. So in any of those ways that you feel safe. But again, I think it's just go to a trusted source And just like you said, if someone wanting, I love that story. Call. How can I know it's really you? I'm going to call you. That's a great way. It's like, how do I know it's really you? Is go to the native app or go to our website to make sure that you're getting that information.
And we have two apps, and I would say that, I'll be very clear about what they are. The first one is our native app, and that's our online banking, and it's a fantastic new platform, and it does have multi-factor authentication, and so that's way more secure than what we had previously. So I am a fan of it, of course. And then the other app, because we're talking a lot about texting and online banking fraud today, but there's also still the debit card fraud, and so there's the GNCU Cards app. And in that cards app, you can actually put alerts on your app. You can stop the card if let's say you lost your card, have no idea where it is. You can turn it off in the app. There's things that you can do to help stem, to stop some fraud on that avenue as well. So I'm a fan of both. I would say use both, and yes, make sure that, as with any app out there, change your passwords frequently, right? Make sure they're hard to guess. Make sure they're not password 1 2 3 4, please, and make sure that you don't share your passwords for debit card stuff. Do not write your PIN on the back of your debit card, pretty please, and just make sure that you're not sharing that information with anybody who doesn't have authority to get that information.
So we had another question that came in is, and again, I think you answered this before, but I'm just going to pose it another way is, what are the safe ways that a bank, a credit union, a financial institution will reach out to let somebody know that something is happening on their account? What is the ways that we can, more officially trust, or what do you recommend that someone would do if they receive such a call?
Sure. So for a debit card, you may get a call from Visa. They'll say, this is Visa, this is Greater Nevada Credit Union. We have a question about some transactions. And the number is published on our website. You can go look it up. And again, they won't ask you for information. They'll give you information and ask you to verify that. Okay. If something else is happening, then someone from my staff or from the call center may reach out to you. But again, we'll be able to identify who we are. And if in doubt, hang up and call us back at the number that's listed on our website. Always.
And I know we're proud of all of the physical locations that they offer. The other option, I would guess, if you really have a concern and it's convenient, you can also go into, whether it's Greater Nevada or someplace else, and go into one of the physical locations and get help that way too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, our branch staff is fantastic, and there have been times where we need someone to go into the branch just to verify, that you are who you say are, because there's been some activity, and all we're trying to do there is help protect our members. We're not trying to make it difficult for anybody. We're just trying to make sure that we're protecting them and their accounts.
Well, we're kind of going to reach where we're close to the end. We have about 5 minutes or so left that we want to do, and we're going to wrap it up with some useful tips and pull up some visuals to support. But I did want to ask you this. In your experience, you're very experienced, you've been dealing with this for most of your professional career, at least at the credit union here. What do you see happening with, I guess, the increase of this? And I know technology is coming out, but I guess maybe just brace us. If you could look ahead, is this going to go away, or do you think this is always going to be something that we need to, as not only an institution, but also just as consumers and users of banking products, be aware that this is probably going to increase? What does your gut tell you, or what does your instinct tell you?
That's a tough question. I would say that I don't know that it's going to increase. I would just say it's going to be different. If you recall, like 7-8 years ago, when we went to chip cards, right? And everybody was like, chip cards are going to be the new thing. There's not going to be any more debit card fraud. And the fraudsters adapted, just like we adapted to using them. They adapted to doing fraud a different way, and that's going to continue to happen. As we have new technology, as we have new things, fraudsters will figure out a way, unfortunately. So it's on us to make sure that we have the right preventative measures in place, and that we're also providing the right education to our staff and to our members to do the right things up front to stop it from happening. So I would say that unfortunately it's not going to stop. It's not going to slow down. Probably it'll probably be about the same. But as long as we're taking measures, I've talked to members who said, this is the third time I've had fraud on my card in a year. And, that's okay. That's okay, because we'll figure it out and we'll figure out how to stop it. And as long as we know that it's happening, we can correct it and we can move on and figure out how to go forward and prevent it going forward. And so that's okay. It's okay to have a rotten transaction on your account once a year or so. We'll get you a new card and we'll be fine. As long as we understand it and we have all the facts, then we can help you and make sure that our members are protected going forward.
And Pat, there was one other question, Patty, I did want to offer up is, we left it out. It's not really directly related to a text, but Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, these are all ways that it makes it really easy to, we joke, Patty and I partake in a very friendly fantasy football league. And, we take advantage of paying our league dues by using these P2P or person-to-person kind of payment portals. Maybe give just a couple of advice about if you use those services, what to be on the lookout, because I do know that is an area that we do need to be prepared for consumers to just not let convenience get in the way of our senses, right? And our just being practical. Just talk about some of those platforms and what to be on the lookout for.
Sure. Yeah. So Venmo and Zelle are interesting in that they use multi-factor authentication as well. But the key to those platforms is that they're person to person, and once that money is sent, it's sent. We can't get it back. It's not recoverable. And so I always encourage all of our members, if you're sending something Venmo, get the code from the person, right? Directly, and make sure it's someone you know. We still have a lot of that going on. We still have some, romance scams and things like that. People, getting defrauded by parties they don't know. So don't send anything to somebody you don't know. Venmo and Zelle are very, very hard to recover. And as a matter of fact, it's, about 95% of the time we don't. And so we encourage you to make sure that you only use those apps. When you're verified, you have the right access to it and you know who you're sending it to.
And as a financial institution, would we ever ask a member to do anything related to those platforms directly with us, or cryptocurrency, which I know is a common thing, anything like that?
No, we wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so just be on the aware. I think the point here, right, is just, be wise. And just because that you're familiar with how you pay your, maybe it's your beautician or your masseuse or your person that is doing something at your house, those are fine, legitimate platforms, and they do offer a lot of convenience. But again, just kind of put that thinking cap on of like, would it really make sense that my financial institution or someone's financial institution is asking me to do something? And I think it's the bottom line. If it feels wrong, or I always say, if it feels too good to be true, then it probably is.
Probably is, yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. Well, listen, we're going to leave you with a couple of practical tips. So, Patty, this will be kind of a lightning round. And if you do know Patty, she is incredibly good at trivia. So I won't do this, but maybe we can team up on these. But here's some common red flags. Do you just want to take some of these, and you can take a breath and pause? But why are we calling these out? What are things to be aware of?
Yeah, so the unexpected text or email, this happens a lot. Obviously, we talked a little bit about this. A fraud alert, there might be fraud on your account. You have been awarded, this new barbecue from Lowe's, right? When you didn't even enter a raffle for that, right? Tax refund, we're coming up to the season next year, in March, April, this is a big one. People get notification that they have a tax refund waiting for them when they have probably filed a tax refund, but it's not from the IRS. And then confirming a delivery or purchase. These are all things that, again, unsolicited, should be a red flag. As long as you didn't do any of these things, then they're not valid texts or emails. The messages with threats or scare tactics, we talked about the urgency and them trying to get you to respond in an urgent manner. Don't be afraid. Contact your financial institution and ask the question, and make sure that you're not responding reactively and emotionally to something from an urgency standpoint.
And this next one is all about like requesting personal information, right?
Yeah. So someone requests your account information or PIN. I don't know anyone's PIN. We have 80,000 members. I don't know a single person's PIN, and I don't want to. We don't ask your account information, such as we don't ask for your debit cards typically, because we have that information. We don't ask for your PINs. We don't ask for your online banking password. Those are not things we will ask you. So please don't give them to us. Please don't leave them on a voicemail for us. If you're leaving a voicemail for the fraud department, we don't want those things out there. And so, yeah, just make sure that that information is confidential to you, for your use.
Great. A couple other examples. We talked about this earlier, but I used to say back when we were kids, right? It was stop, drop, and roll was
Right, right.
right. We all have these simple things, but why are we talking about the stop and think? Why is that so important?
It's that sense of urgency thing. It's, stop, don't click on a link, contact your financial institution through the website and make sure that it is a valid concern regarding your account, because 99% of the time it's not.
It's great. Yeah, I think it's always better to pause. And I will say this, like whatever urgency you're feeling in the moment, it's going to pale in comparison to the time and the frustration you will have. And again, I want to reiterate, Patty's team and anybody that works within the credit union industry, we are here to help our members. And, we have empathy. We're never going to shame someone who calls in and says this. I think that's another factor is, you have to be honest about what's happening. I know sometimes maybe you can share some of those stories where someone won't give us all the information, maybe because they feel embarrassed. And it's just important to get over that, right?
Absolutely. We've had a lot of those where people are ashamed because they've fallen victim to it. And you know what? It's okay. Everybody's done something that they, wish they didn't at some point in their life. And let's just give us the facts so we can figure it out. We can address it, fix it, and then move forward and ensure that it's not going to happen to you again.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's tuned into this, and we'll continue to offer education and offer advice. But Patty, I'll give you the final thoughts and anything else you'd like to wrap up. But as we go into this, I know it's the holiday season. People are going to get busier. They'll be around family. Final thoughts, just to ways to really be on the lookout for this and how to protect not only yourself but your family.
Sure. Yeah, we're coming into the season where more online transactions are done and more purchases, and so fraud will automatically, relatively increase. But I would just say this: I would say that we're here to help. We're not judgmental. We will do whatever we can to make sure that our members are protected. I am always available to answer that question. If you are concerned about a text or a link, please reach out. Our team, everyone here at Greater Nevada Credit Union does a very, very good job of working through the details and figuring it out. Don't be afraid to share the details. Don't be afraid to give us the truth. And also don't be afraid to turn us down. If I call you and you're not sure who I am, then double check me. I'm okay with that at any time.
And you hit on that, the genuine nature of everyone to want to be polite and to be courteous. Sometimes I will say, I've had attempted fraud attempts, and that sense of you where you almost feel like, well, it's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you. And, I think healthy skepticism, right? And anybody that works in our industry or specifically at Greater Nevada, we're not going to take it as being rude. We applaud when someone is practicing sort of what's the advice that we're giving you. But Patty Chang, who is our Senior Vice President of Risk, thank you so much for your expertise and what you and your team do to try to help individuals and our members get through this. And anybody that's interested in additional resources, I just want to encourage you to visit our website. It's an easy one to remember, gncu.org, and you can just do that /fraud. That's a quick way to get to a lot of very useful information and helpful tips. And anytime that you want to refer to that to a family or a friend, it's a great place to get everything that we talked about in a visual way or a way to kind of share it and move it out there. But thank you very much for joining us. And Patty, thank you again for your time and what you do. And really appreciate everybody who's tuned into this. Stay tuned. We'll have more useful information and ways to prevent yourself from becoming a victim of fraud. And we appreciate your time today. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone.